Welcome back to the channel, guys. In this video, I'm going to show you how to install paddles to the back of your PlayStation 5 controller, so stick around. Okay, this is going to be the installation of the 2-paddle kit for the PS5 controller. This is a stock PS5 controller that has been unmodified. This is brand new. So let's take a look at the box here. This is the Extreme Rate Rise Remap Kit for PS5 controller. Let's quickly do the unboxing and see what's inside. So this is the back panel. This is the back cover where the paddles will be. It comes with a little bag with tools and a bunch of screws and pins, and then all of the ribbons that you're going to be using to connect the new paddles to the controller. So there's no soldering involved with this kit. It's all it is installing these ribbon cables to the existing controller hardware. So let's take everything out of the bags. I'm going to use this handy little container to hold the screws so I don't lose anything. Okay, now let's start off by taking apart the controller. Alright, so here's our controller. We're going to take the provided tool, and first thing you're going to do is you're going to remove this front panel here. And so what you want to do is you want to take the end, stick it underneath the tip of the controller here, and just gently pry up, and you'll hear the plastic clips snap off. You want to do that on both sides. And then just run the tool all along the edge here. Do the same on the other side. Okay, and then it should just come right off. Like that. So we'll put this to the side. Next thing you want to do is you want to remove the bumper buttons, the L1 and the R1 button. So again, using the same tool, you're going to shove it in and then just pry up, and they should pop right out. Same thing for the other side. Okay, we'll put the buttons on the side here. Now the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to remove these 4 screws. You have one here. I'll go like this. One there. One there. And then 2 more on the bottom. One there. And one there. So let's unscrew those. And these 4 all appear to be the same size. So you can put those to the side. Okay, the next thing you want to do is you're going to want to take the 2 halves of the controller apart. So you're going to use this seam here and the included tool that you get. So start here at the bottom and work your way up the controller till you have good separation like that. Repeat on the other side. Like so. And then the last 2 clips are going to be right here. This one here and this one here. So very gently, you're going to pry forward on those. Like that. There's the other one. See, there we go. It came loose. And then you pull this off. And it may clip back in, so you may just need to use the tool. And there we go. So there's that. Put the back plate to the side. So there is the open controller. Okay, now the next thing you want to do is you're going to want to remove the battery. So the battery is just held in with some clips here. So you can pull it back. And then you should see the connector right down in there. And try to grab it by the plastic connector and don't pull on the wires. So make sure you grab it by the connector here. There's a little lip that you can put your fingernails on and pull that off. And we'll put the battery to the side for now. Okay, now the next thing you want to do is you're going to want to remove this piece here, this ribbon cable. So very gently pull up on the ribbon cable and it should come out. Just like that. And this whole entire piece will come out. So we'll just set that off to the side. And now we can take the battery door, this little compartment piece, off. It's held in with just 1 screw right there. There it is. There's the battery door, little compartment, and there's the one screw that's holding it onto the controller, so be careful not to lose this guy. So we'll put this off to the side. Okay, now we're ready to take the ribbon cables out of the main board here. So you're going to have 4 ribbon cables that you want to pull out. You have the 2 on the sides. You have this one at the top that's got a little blue piece here, and then you've got the little one down here. So take all 4 of these out. So we'll start with this little guy. Comes right out like that. Do the one on the side. The one at the top, and you can use that blue piece to grip on. There we go. And then one last one here on the side. Okay, there we go. We've got 1, 2, 3, and then 4. Okay, now the ribbon cables on the sides, these 2, you're actually going to replace these from the parts that came in the kit. So you can actually go ahead and remove these entirely. So there's one. This is the one from the right side. And then we'll pull this guy out. This is the one from the left. So you won't be needing those anymore. Okay, so now you want to lift the control board out of the controller. Just be very careful, as you do have these wires on the sides for the motors. You don't want to really yank on it too hard. It is being held in by these really small clips on the side here. So you may have to pry on those back a little bit before it'll actually pop out. There's one side. Back on that guy. So now it should just fall right out. Okay. So there is that. So it just came right out after prying on these 2 clips, and we just folded it back. Okay, so we're going to take our piece of ribbon, and you can tell which one it is because it has this self-adhesive sticking to it. And we're going to put this right in here. You'll see these 2 holes, and you'll see these 2 pegs. So you're basically going to put this in there and push down. Make sure that it's secure. Just like that. And then we're going to reinstall a control board, and just be very, very careful. Make sure nothing falls out of place. And then I just tuck this guy out the front. You'll notice there's a little square piece here. This guy got a little piece of foam. This guy just sits right in there. The foam just rests on the board. So you can put that guy back in there if it happens to fall out. And we're just going to reinstall board. And remember, there's these 2 locating pins. And you're just going to want to make sure that this ribbon cable here on the bottom right is tucked out. This guy here. doesn't get left behind the board. Then once you've got that out, you've got these alignment pins, and then just go ahead and push down, and these locking clips on the sides will hold the board in place. So now we can go ahead and reinstall this ribbon cable here. That one just goes right back in there. Make sure you give it a good push. Make sure it's nice and tucked in. Okay, so the next one we're going to do is we're going to take this ribbon cable here and install this on the right hand side. So the first one here, this side of the ribbon cable, the letters will face towards the inside of the controller, and you're going to plug that into this slot here. Hope you can see that. So let's get that guy. Okay, I hope you can see that tucked in there. And then we're going to fold this guy over like this, and the other end is going to go right in that slot there. Make sure you give them both a good wiggle. Make sure that they're in nice and secure. You don't want them to accidentally slip out over time. And if you did this correctly, you'll see that you have one wire with this exposed here. So we'll move on and do the other side. Okay, this is the ribbon cable for the other side. And once again, when you're installing this, the letters that are printed on the ribbon cable, you want them to face towards the center of the controller. So this side here is going to go on the outside here, this little black connector here. Okay, so there it is, right in there. You can see these little tiny tabs are up against the edge of the connector. That tells you that it's nice and secure in there. Now we're going to fold this guy over, just as we did with the other side, and then plug the other end of the cable to the inside connector right here. This guy. And they do include these little tabs right here. You can see that. They're somewhat detached from the ribbon cable. And this is what you really want to grip onto when you're installing them. So you can grab that and really push down on it. So again, if you look at the small little tabs right here, you'll see that they're up against the top surface of the connector here. You can see that. And that should give you an indication that they are fully seated all the way down. Okay, now we just got to make sure we put the last ribbon cable back on the board. So again, I want to slide that into the connector up here and then push on it. And then this one actually has a black line printed on it to let you know that it's fully seated. So if that black line is up against the top face of the connector, then it's in all the way. Just give it a nice tug to make sure that it won't come loose. Now we're ready to install the battery holder. When you do that, just make sure that you pull this ribbon cable back, as you don't want it to be underneath battery door. And there's just the one screw that holds this plastic piece in place. Go ahead and tighten that. And then you can install your battery. Now the connector on the battery does have little keys, so this will only plug in one way. So don't force it in there. If it's not going in, flip it around the other way. Make sure that it's fully seated right in there. So then these wires, you'll want to tuck those underneath this little plastic clip here. And again, make sure that this ribbon cable is pulled out of the way. Just like that. Okay, the last thing we want to do is we want to reattach a little speaker that we removed from here. This guy. So this also has a little handle for you to grab. You can push down on it. A nice press. And then the little speaker, there's a little recessed piece in there that holds it in place. Right in there. Okay. Now we can attach this ribbon cable to the actual battery. It does come with this adhesive, so peel back. And just be very careful. Just like that. Now this kit did come with a couple extra cables that allows you to use the paddles to map the L3 and R3 buttons as well as the touchpad, but we're not going to use those, so we're going to leave these out. I believe the L3 and R3 you need to solder these, so we're going to not use these, so we're just going to leave these out. Okay, now we're ready to start plugging in the ribbon cables to the extreme rate circuit board. Now these, you have to be very careful. These do have these little locking gates. So before you insert the cable, you have to lift the gate up, and then you can insert the ribbon cable. And again, these do have these little tabs that you can use to pry on. So push down on the tab, and then once it's inserted far enough, you can then close the little locking gate. Just like, we'll do the same thing for this one here. We'll lift up the gate, insert this guy in here. We'll use these little tabs as leverage. And we'll go ahead and lock it down. And again, this is for the L3, R3 button that we are not using, that ribbon cable that we're not using, because it does require soldering. So we're not going to end up using this slot here. Okay, so we're going to move our controller to the side now. We're going to start preparing the back panel. This guy here that was included in the kit. So we're going to need these pieces here. These are the two paddles, and then this is where they snap into. So you're going to want to find these pins, and these pins will slide into the paddles like so. You'll do that for both paddles. Like so. And then these will snap into right here on both sides. And you can tell which one goes where because this actually has stamping on here. This says K1. And this paddle here says K1. So you know that this one goes right in there. Like that. We've got K2 and K2. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now we're going to attach the paddle assembly to the back of the controller. And this does have these little notches here that kind of help you place it in this groove. And it's going to be using these 4 screws. You're going to use 4 screws to hold this in place. We'll flip around and you can see the 4 screw holes here. We're going to take some of the screws that we got with the hardware. We're going to use these little black screws. I don't know why they gave you so many, but they give you a bunch in case you happen to lose one. So we'll just go ahead and attach this 4 screws. And 4. So there are the 4 screws that hold this together. Okay, so now we're ready to put the two halves of the controller together. Just make sure that when you do, you feed this ribbon cable through that opening there in the controller. Like that. And we're going to take our circuit board and we're going to insert the ribbon cable, the exposed contacts facing down. It's got a little gate, little locking gate there. Pull that up. Slide it in. And then go ahead and lock it into place. Like so. Okay, now we're ready to attach the control board to this back panel here. So we're going to slide this cover up, pull some of the slack out of the cable, and there's these two locating pins here and here. And then you're going to use two screws. These are the two screw holes to mount it in place. And these do use the small screws that are in the kit. You'll find the small screws. Here's another one. And in case you don't know the difference, I mean, you can kind of tell the difference between the larger diameter screws and the much smaller diameter screws. So these are the ones that we just used, the small ones for this back piece, and then the bigger ones we used to attach the bracket to the back face of the controller. Okay, so now let's move this to the side. We're ready to assemble the door. You're going to have three pieces. You're going to have the on-off button, and then you're going to have this little cover that goes over the LED light. So the cover slides in from the top, this, and then you just clamp it in place. So should sit flush with the top and the back of the door. And then the power button will just sit in these little pegs here. Like that. Okay, so now before we attach the door to the back of the paddle kit, let's go ahead and close the controller down. Remember, there's these two locking tabs in the front, and then make sure that clips in all along the edge, like that. So now, controller is clamped down all the way. Okay, so now we can install this door. Now this part's gonna be a little tricky because if you flip it around, the button will fall out. So the easiest way I found was set it in place, like that, and hold this facing down, and then just take your controller and you'll want the top to go over the clips there, and then the bottom will clamp. I don't know if you can see these clips here, but there's clips on the top and bottom that will lock it in place. So let's put this back in there. Then it just clips into place like that. Give your controller, your paddles, a few clicks, make sure they're clicking. Now we haven't reassembled the controller all the way. It's probably a good idea at this point to test it and make sure that all the buttons, the joysticks, power button, you know, all the paddles, everything works before you assemble it completely. So I'm going to go and test it out, make sure everything works, and then we'll come back and then we'll finish reassembling the rest of the controller. Okay, now that we verified that the controller is working, we were able to turn the PlayStation on with it. If you press the power button down for about 5 seconds, you should see a little LED light that turns on right at the top here. So let's go ahead and finish putting this back together. We're going to start by reinstalling the 4 screws that we removed earlier. Let's do that now. Okay, now with the 4 screws installed, we can push the R1 and L1 buttons back in. Click that in. The L1 button. Okay, now the last piece is going to be the front panel. And this one you want to start by inserting the tips into those little corners there. And then you want to push it down. And then you're going to start clicking it in all along the sides. Make sure everything clicks in all the way down. Just like that. Make sure everything sitting flush. And there we go. There is the paddles attached to the back of the controller. Looks pretty nice if you ask me. So now let's go check out and see how we can map the paddles to one of these buttons here. And really quick, these are all the leftover parts that we ended up with. Remember, we said that these 2 cables were not needed since you needed to solder these into the board, and you got a lot of screws left over, and you got a couple of these pins for the paddles that they give you. They give you a bunch of extra hardware that you end up not needing, but you can keep for as spares. And then these are the leftover parts from the original PlayStation 5 controller that we are no longer using. So obviously the back panel, and then the 2 ribbon cables that we replaced. Okay, so now I'm going to show you guys how to map the paddles to any of the front buttons up here. So what you want to do is you want to press the power button for about 5 seconds until you see the LED light turn on. Once the LED light is on, you're now ready to map the paddles. So what you want to do is you want to press and hold the paddle and whatever button you want to assign it to. So for me, for the right paddle, I'm going to assign the X button. So you press and hold them together for about 3 seconds. And you'll see that the light blinks about 4 to 5 times really fast. So we'll do the same thing on the left paddle. We'll press and hold along with the circle button. I'm going to choose circle for the left side paddle. And you'll see that the LED light will blink about 3 to 4 times really fast. Now, you just got to press and hold the power button till the LED light turns off. Once the LED light is off, then go ahead and test it and see if it works. So we're going to use the left paddle, and that's the crouch or slide button. And now the right paddle is the jump button, or the X button. Crouch, jump. So that's it, guys. That is the 2 paddles installed on a stock PlayStation 5 controller. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.